The desert wind howled through the empty parking lot of the roadside diner, carrying the faint scent of sagebrush and exhaust. It was just past midnight, and the neon sign flickered like a dying heartbeat against the starless sky. Ethan Hawk Riley pulled his weathered Harley to a stop, the engine's rumble fading into a low growl before silence swallowed it whole. He was a man carved from hard miles, tattoos snaking up his arms like forgotten rivers, a scar pulling at the corner of his eye from a long-ago brawl that had cost him more than blood. At 42, Hawk carried the weight of promises unspoken, ghosts from a war that had taken his brother and left him with a club of riders who were more family than blood. He killed the ignition and swung his leg over the bike, helmet tucked under one arm. The diner was a relic, all chrome and cracked vinyl booths, the kind of place where truckers nursed black coffee and shared stories of roads that led nowhere. Hawk pushed through the door, the bell jingling like a warning. Inside, the air was thick with grease and cigarette smoke. A handful of night owls hunched over plates. He slid onto a stool at the counter, ordering a black coffee that steamed like morning fog. As the waitress poured, a small figure caught his eye at the edge of the lot. She couldn't have been more than 10, her backpack slung low, standing hesitant by his bike under the floodlight's harsh glow. Hawk watched through the window, his hand tightening on the mug. Kids didn't wander these stretches alone, not at this hour. She glanced around, then crept closer to his Harley, her movements quick and furtive, like a shadow slipping through cracks. He set the coffee down untouched and stepped outside, boots crunching on gravel. The girl froze, her wide eyes reflecting the bike's chrome. She was small, with tangled brown hair and a faded jacket too big for her frame, Lily, though he didn't know her name yet. In her hand, she clutched a crumpled piece of paper, her fingers trembling. "You lost, kid." Hawk's voice was gravel rough, but soft at the edges, the kind earned from years of raining in the storm inside. She shook her head, backing up a step. "No, sir, I saw your bike. It's strong. Like you." Her words tumbled out, rehearsed and fragile. Before he could respond, she darted forward, slipping the note under the strap of his helmet perched on the handlebar. Then she ran, back toward the highway's edge, vanishing into the night like she'd never been there. Hawk stared at the spot where she'd disappeared, the wind tugging at his leather vest. He approached the bike slowly, lifting the helmet. The paper was folded tight, edges worn as if carried for days. He unfolded it under the diner's light. "Dear biker man, my name is Lily. The big kids at school hurt me every day. They say I'm nothing. My dad left and Mom works all night. I need someone strong to make them stop. Please help. I promise I'll be good." From the girl who dreams of riding away. A punch to the gut. That's what it felt like. Hawk's breath caught, memories flooding back unbidden. His own sister years ago, cornered by shadows in a schoolyard much like this one's. Her pleas ignored until it was too late. He'd promised her he'd always protect her, but the war had stolen him away, and the promise had turned to ash. Now, this note, innocent scrawl on lined paper, stirred that old fire. He crumpled it in his fist, then smoothed it out, tucking it into his pocket. Dawn was hours off, but sleep wouldn't come now. Back inside, he nursed the coffee, mind racing. The club, Iron Vows they called themselves, was scattered across the county, a brotherhood forged in the fires of lost battles and unbreakable oaths. Hawk had walked away from the life after his brother's death, drifting solo, but loyalty didn't fade like tire tracks. He pulled out his phone, the screen glowing harsh in the dim booth. One by one, he texted the core riders, Jax, the ex-Marine with a laugh like thunder, Marco, the mechanic who fixed more than engines, and Lena, the only woman in the patch, a nurse who'd patched their wounds and their souls. Meet at the old mill by 5 a.m, got a promise to keep. Replies pinged back fast. Questions, but no hesitations. That's how it was with them, a call in the night, and they rode. As the sky began to bruise purple, Hawk fired up the Harley, the engine roaring to life like a beast awakened. The note burned in his pocket, a beacon pulling him toward a school he'd never seen, a fight that wasn't his, but promises had a way of binding tighter than chains. He gunned the throttle, tires kicking up dust as he merged onto the empty road, the first rays of sun glinting off the horizon. By the time he reached the county line, the convoy was forming behind him, headlights piercing the dawn like eyes in the dark. 36 riders strong, engines harmonizing in a symphony of steel and resolve. They weren't out for blood. Hawk had made that clear in the texts. This was about standing tall, about showing a little girl that the world had guardians who kept their word. The school loomed ahead, a squat brick building in a sleepy town called Willow Creek, flags snapping in the morning breeze. Buses idled, kids milling about with backpacks and yawns. Hawk pulled into the lot first, the growl of his bike drawing stares. He killed the engine, helmet under his arm, and strode toward the entrance, the club fanning out behind him like a wall of leather and chrome. The principal burst out the doors, face flushed, a wiry man named Mr. Hargrove, with glasses perched on a beak of a nose. "What is this? You can't park here." Hawk held up a hand, his voice steady as bedrock. "We're here for Lily, the girl who left a note. She's got trouble, and we're seeing it ends." Whispers rippled through the crowd, kids pointing, teachers clustering. Hargrove sputtered, "This is a school, not a circus. Who authorized?" But Hawk was already scanning the faces, spotting her. Lily, huddled by the fence, eyes wide as saucers at the sight of the bikers. She clutched her backpack like a shield, but a tentative smile broke through. The first bell rang, shrill and insistent, but no one moved. Jax dismounted, his massive frame casting a shadow, and knelt to Lily's level. "You the one with the note, kid. We're here 'cause of you." Tears welled in her eyes, but she nodded, fierce and small. The school froze, bullies shrinking back, whispers turning to awe. Hargrove tried to intervene again, phone in hand, but Lena stepped forward, her voice cutting like a blade. "We're not here to cause trouble. We're here to talk, about protection, about promises." Inside the auditorium, hastily cleared, Hawk addressed the assembly. Principal, teachers, kids packed in rows. His words weren't a rant. They were a quiet thunder, painting pictures of lost siblings, broken oaths, and the strength in choosing family. "This girl reached out," he said, holding up the note for all to see, "and we answered. Not with fists, but with presence. Bullying ends when we stand together." The room hung on his every syllable, the air thick with unspoken reckonings. Lily sat front row, chin high, her hand slipping into Hawk's at the end. Outside, engines idled, a reminder that justice rolled in on two wheels. As the day unfolded, counselors were called, meetings set, changes rippling out like waves from a stone dropped in still water. Hawk watched from the lot, the club forming a loose perimeter, not invading but guarding. He'd shocked the school, all right, not with chaos, but with honor reborn. But as the sun climbed, a shadow lingered, whispers of deeper troubles, a father gone rogue, ties to old crimes that might pull Lily back into the dark. Hawk's promise had just begun, the road ahead twisted with secrets of his own. The sun hung high over Willow Creek Elementary, casting long shadows across the playground, where laughter now mixed uneasily with the low hum of idling motorcycles. Hawk leaned against his Harley, arms crossed, watching as Lily emerged from the school doors at recess, her steps lighter, but her eyes still darting like a fawn in open fields. The bikers had dispersed somewhat, some patrolling the perimeter on foot, others chatting with wide-eyed teachers who approached with a mix of caution and curiosity. Jax towered near the swings, his booming laugh drawing a circle of kids who forgot their fears in the face of his gentle giant persona. But Hawk's gaze stayed fixed on the girl, the note's words echoing in his mind like a distant engine rumble. Principal Hargrove had retreated to his office after the assembly, his protests silenced by the weight of Hawk's words and the unspoken threat of the club's presence. Councillors had been summoned from the district, notebooks in hand, promising investigations into the incidents Lily had endured. Phrases like peer conflicts and emotional support plans floating through the air like smoke from a backfired exhaust. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a start. Hawk felt the pull of that old promise to his sister tightening around his chest, a chain he couldn't shake. He'd failed her once. He wouldn't fail this child. As the bell rang for the end of recess, Lily broke from the crowd and approached him, her backpack swinging like a pendulum. Up close, the signs of her burdens were clearer. Faint bruises hidden under her sleeves, eyes shadowed by nights too long for a 10-year-old. "You came," she whispered, as if saying it aloud might make it vanish. "I thought maybe it was a dream." Hawk crouched to her level, the gravel biting into his knees. "Dreams don't ride Harleys, kid. We keep our word." He glanced at the school, where a group of older boys, the ones with smirks too sharp for their age, huddled by the basketball hoop, stealing glances. One nudged another, whispering, but they kept their distance now, the bikers' shadows long enough to reach them. Before Lily could respond, a teacher's aide hurried over, her face a mask of professional concern. "Miss Lily, you need to come inside. We have a meeting." The woman shot Hawk a wary look, as if he were the intruder rather than the shield. Lily hesitated, clutching the strap of her bag. "Will you be here after school? Mom picks me up late sometimes." Hawk nodded, the motion steady as a heartbeat. "We'll be here, all of us." As she walked away, he straightened, pulling out his phone. A quick text to Marco. "Eyes on the lot after 3. Something feels off." The mechanic replied instantly, "On it, boss, bringing the van for cover." The afternoon dragged like a slow burn, the club's presence turning the sleepy school into a hive of activity. Lena, with her nurse's badge still pinned to her vest, had volunteered to sit in on the counseling session, her calm voice a counterpoint to the principal's bluster. Whispers spread through the halls, stories of the biker guardian who honored a child's plea, tales that softened the edges of fear into something like hope. But Hawk sensed the undercurrent. The way Hargrove's eyes flicked to his office window, phone pressed to his ear more than once. By 3 o'clock, the lot filled with yellow buses and minivans, parents pulling up with puzzled frowns at the line of gleaming bikes. Lily emerged last, scanning the crowd until her eyes locked on Hawk. But before she could reach him, a battered pickup truck screeched into the lot, tires spitting gravel. The door flew open, and a man stumbled out, mid-40s, disheveled beard, eyes bloodshot and wild. He zeroed in on Lily, his voice a bark that cut through the chatter. "Get in the damned truck, girl, now!" Lily froze, her small frame shrinking. Hawk was moving before he thought, striding forward with Jax at his flank. The man, Lily's father. It hit Hawk like a gut punch, grabbed her arm, yanking her toward the vehicle. "Who the hell are you?" he snarled at Hawk, breath reeking of cheap whiskey even from a distance. "Someone who got a note," Hawk said, voice low and even, positioning himself between the man and the truck. The club closed ranks subtly, engines firing up one by one, a chorus of warning growls. Parents gasped, in phones emerging from pockets, but no one intervened. This was the raw edge of the world Hawk knew too well. The father laughed, bitter and jagged. "Note? She's lying like always. Ain't no one's business." But his grip loosened as Marco pulled up in the van, blocking the exit, and Lena stepped in, her tone authoritative. "Sir, let go. We're talking to the school about protection orders." "You don't want this escalating," Lily whimpered, pulling free and running to Hawk's side, her hand finding his like an anchor. The man's face twisted, rage, shame, something broken flashing through. "You bikers think you're heroes? Stay out of family matters!" He climbed back into the truck, slamming the door, but the engine sputtered, the club's bikes forming an unyielding wall. Hawk knelt again, shielding Lily. "Go with Lena, kid. We'll sort this." As the social services van Lena had called arrived, lights flashing but sirens silent, the father was coaxed out, cuffs clicking softly under Hargrove's watchful eye. No violence, just the steady application of truth. Reports from the school, Lily's note as evidence, a history of absences and calls to child services ignored until now. In the aftermath, as the lot cleared, Hawk watched the truck towed away. The man loaded into a squad car for questioning. Lily sat in Lena's van, a blanket around her shoulders, sipping juice with trembling hands. "He wasn't always like that," she murmured. "After Mom's shifts, he gets lost." Hawk nodded, the weight of her words settling like dust after a ride. His own past mirrored it, a brother lost to the bottle after the war, promises shattered in the haze. The club gathered around, a circle of leather and resolve, Jax clapping a hand on Hawk's shoulder. "We ride for her now, full patch." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges, Hawk mounted his bike. Lily safely with Lena heading to a temporary shelter. The convoy reformed, not tearing off in fury, but rolling out with purpose. Scouts to check on the mother, others to lean on local contacts for legal aid. The school's shock had rippled further, exposing cracks in the facade of small-town normalcy. But Hawk knew this was no ending. The father's outburst hinted at deeper ties, old debts, perhaps to the very shadows Hawk had left behind in his drifting days. The road ahead curved into twilight, engines thrumming with the quiet power of oaths renewed. Promises didn't die easy. They roared back to life, 1 mile at a time. And now, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. Twilight settled over Willow Creek like a heavy blanket, the kind that muffled sounds and sharpened shadows. Hawk rode point in the convoy, the Harley's headlight cutting through the gathering dusk as they left the school behind. The air cooled rapidly, carrying the faint tang of cooling asphalt and distant rain. Behind him, the club's engines thrummed in unison, a steady pulse that spoke of unity forged in harder times. Jax flanked his left, Marco to the right, with Lena trailing in the van, Lily safe inside, her small face pressed to the window until the school faded from view. The girl's trust was a fragile thing, one with presence rather than words, but Hawk felt its weight like an extra saddlebag. They veered off the main road toward the old quarry outskirts, a neutral ground where the iron vows often gathered away from prying eyes. The path wound through scrubland, tires crunching over loose stones that glittered like scattered diamonds under the rising moon. Hawk's mind raced ahead, piecing together fragments from Lily's note and the father's wild eyes. That man, Ricky Harlan, Hargrove had called him in the chaos, wasn't just a drunk stumbling through life. The way he'd snarled about family matters carried an edge Hawk recognized from his own shadowed past, the desperation of someone tangled in webs spun long ago. Debts unpaid, perhaps, or worse, ties to the kind of crews that preyed on the vulnerable, the same underbelly that had claimed Hawk's brother in a haze of bad choices and broken oaths. Pulling into the quarry's clearing, the bikes formed a loose circle, dust settling like a sigh. Hawk dismounted, boots hitting the ground with a solid thud. The group killed their engines one by one, The sudden silence amplifying the night's chorus, crickets chirping, wind whispering through Joshua trees. Lily emerged from the van first, Lena's hand steady on her shoulder. The girl looked smaller in the open space, but her chin lifted as she approached Hawk, clutching a water bottle like a talisman. "You kept your promise," she said softly, her voice barely rising above the breeze. "Even when he came." Hawk knelt, meeting her gaze. "Promises aren't conditional, kid. That's what makes them real." He glanced at the others, Jax cracking his knuckles absent-mindedly, Marco wiping grease from his hands on a rag, Lena scanning the horizon with a nurse's vigilance. This was their family, chosen in the fires of loss and loyalty, much like the one Hawk had pieced together after the war. His brother, Tommy, had ridden with a rival club back then, enticed by quick money and the illusion of power. It ended in a ditch, body never found, just whispers of a deal gone south. Hawk had sworn off the life, but oaths had a way of circling back. Lena stepped forward, her voice pulling him from the memory. "Social services is en route to the mother's place. She's a night shift worker at the mill, exhausted but clean. No priors, but Ricky's been a ghost in and out. The school's reports mention bruises, absences, signs of strain." She paused, eyes softening on Lily. "The girl's strong, but she needs stability, not just a show of force." Jax grunted, leaning against his bike. "Force. We stood our ground without throwing a punch. That's more than most would do." His laugh rumbled low, but there was no mirth in it, only the quiet resolve of a man who'd lost his own daughter to illness years back, turning his grief into guardianship for strays like this. Hawk nodded, standing. "It's a start, but I smell more trouble." Ricky's truck had markings, faded. "But I know that snake tattoo on the dash. Lowriders from the east side, the kind that collect on old scores." The words hung heavy, stirring murmurs among the riders. Marco straightened, his mechanic's eyes narrowing. "You think he's into something that could drag her back? Debts passed down like heirlooms?" The question twisted in Hawk's gut. He'd seen it before. Fathers like Ricky, hollowed out by regrets, pulling their kids into the abyss to settle ghosts. His own father had been that way after the war, distant, drowning in bottles, until one night he vanished, leaving Hawk to fend for a sister who deserved better. That failure fueled every mile he rode now, every oath he honored. Before he could respond, headlights pierced the darkness from the access road. A sleek black SUV, unmarked but purposeful, rolling to a stop at the quarry's edge. The club tensed, hands drifting to pockets where tools doubled as weapons, but Hawk raised a fist, signaling hold. A woman stepped out mid-30s, sharp suit and sharper eyes, Detective Elena Vasquez, or so her badge gleamed under the moonlight. She'd crossed paths with Hawk once before, during a club run-in with border smugglers. Her integrity a rare light in a corrupt system. "Riley," she called, voice carrying clear. "Heard about your field trip to the school. Bold move for a drifter." Hawk approached, the gravel shifting under his boots. Not drifting anymore. Got a note that hit home. He didn't elaborate. Trust was earned, not given. Vasquez nodded toward Lily, who peeked from behind Lena. "Harlan's in holding, DUI, plus the school's complaint. But he's lawyered up quick, talking about custody rights. Says the bikers are intimidating witnesses." Her tone held no accusation, just facts laid bare like cards on a table. Jack snorted from the circle. "Intimidating? We protected her." The detective's gaze swept the group, assessing. "I get it. Small towns bury these things under family privacy, but Ricky's got connections. Old crew from the warehouse fires 5 years back. Arson cover-ups, missing evidence. If he's desperate, he might not stop at yelling." Hawk's scar tugged as he clenched his jaw. Warehouse fires. Tommy's last ride had been hauling for those very shadows. Promises of easy cash turning to flames. Coincidence? or the past rearing up like a bad checkpoint. What do you need from us? Vasquez pulled a card from her pocket, handing it over. Stay visible, but clean. I'll push for a temporary order keeping him away. Talk to the mother, Sarah Harlan. She's at the shelter now, scared but willing. Tell her the club's offering support, not takeover. Lily tugged at Hawk's sleeve, her whisper fierce. Mom's good. She sings to me when he's gone, but the bad men, they come sometimes at night. The words landed like a spark on dry tinder. Bad men, echoes of the low-riders, perhaps, collecting on Ricky's failures. Hawk exchanged looks with his crew. This wasn't just a schoolyard stand. It was a reckoning, pulling at threads that could unravel everything. As Vasquez drove off, tail lights fading into the night, the group huddled closer. Marco fired up a small grill from the van, steaks sizzling, the smoky aroma cutting the chill, turning the quarry into a makeshift camp. Stories flowed with the coffee, Jax recounting a marine op where loyalty saved lives, Lena sharing a shift where she held a stranger's hand through the dark. Lily listened, wide-eyed, nibbling on a burger, her laughter tentative but real when Jax mimed a ridiculous bike stunt. Hawk sat apart, phone in hand, dialing the shelter. Sarah's voice answered, weary but warm. Lily, is she... She's here. Safe. Hawk cut in gently. We're the ones from the school. Iron vows. Your girl's got guardians now. A pause, then a sob muffled by hope. Ricky. He's trying to change, but the debts. They own him. Hawk's grip tightened. Not anymore. We'll ride with you through it. By midnight the fire crackled low, embers glowing like unspoken vows. Lily curled up in the van with blankets, Lena watching over. The club mounted up again, engines roaring to life, heading toward the shelter under starlit skies. The road twisted ahead, fraught with ethical shadows, confronting corruption without becoming it, honoring promises amid the pull of old sins. Hawk led the way, the wind whipping his face, a silent prayer on his lips for redemption, not just for Lily, but for the boy he'd been, who couldn't save his own. Dawn would bring meetings, lawyers, perhaps a face-off with Ricky's ghosts. But in the quiet miles, Hawk felt the stir of purpose. A family chosen, oaths unbroken, rolling forward into the unknown. The little girl's note had ignited more than a morning ride. It had awakened a brotherhood to the fight for one soul's light. The first light of dawn crept over the shelter's modest roof like a hesitant intruder, painting the parking lot in soft greys and golds. Hawk eased his Harley to a stop, the engine's final purr echoing off the plain brick walls before fading into the morning hush. The air was crisp, laced with the scent of dew-kissed grass and faint coffee from inside. Behind him, the convoy pulled in quietly, Jax's bike rumbling low, Marco's van trailing with Lena at the wheel, Lily still asleep in the back seat under a pile of borrowed jackets. They'd ridden through the night in shifts, scouts peeling off to watch the roads, ensuring no shadows from Ricky's world followed. Hawk dismounted, his boots scraping softly on the asphalt as he scanned the lot. The shelter was a quiet haven on the edge of Willow Creek, surrounded by chain link and flower beds that spoke of fragile new starts. He'd been here once before, years ago, dropping off supplies for a veterans program after his own ghosts had driven him to the edge. Promises like that, small acts in the dark, kept the demons at bay. Now, for Lily and her mother, it was personal. Lena parked and gently roused the girl, who blinked awake with tousled hair and a yawn that betrayed her exhaustion. "We're here," Lena murmured, her voice a soothing anchor. Lily nodded, clutching her backpack as she slid out, her eyes lighting on the building with a mix of relief and wariness. Jax hung back by the bikes, his massive frame a silent sentinel, while Marco tinkered with a loose chain, ever the fixer. Inside, the lobby hummed with subdued activity, volunteers sorting donations, the murmur of conversations laced with hope and heartache. Sarah Harlan waited in a worn armchair, her face pale but composed, dark circles under eyes that mirrored her daughter's. She was in her late 30s, with Lily's brown hair tied back simply, hands twisting a tissue as the door opened. When she saw the group, her breath hitched, standing abruptly. You're the ones from the school?" Hawk nodded, stepping forward with a respect that softened his rough edges. "Ethan Riley, we brought your girl home safe." Lily broke free and ran to her, burying her face in Sarah's side. The embrace was fierce, a dam breaking in silent tears. Lena introduced herself, flashing her nurse's credentials to ease the tension. "We're here to help, not judge." Social services cleared us for a visit. Sarah led them to a small meeting room, walls lined with posters of smiling families and helplines. The air smelled of stale tea and fresh paint, a space built for mending. As they sat around a scarred wooden table, Jax and Marco posted up by the door like understated guardians. Sarah poured water from a pitcher, her hands steadying. "Ricky, he wasn't always lost. The mill laid him off 2 years back and the debts piled up. Men came around, rough types talking about old favors. He thought he could handle it, but it pulled him under." Hawk leaned in, his voice low and measured. "What kind of favors?" "We saw the markings on his truck, low riders, maybe tied to those warehouse troubles." Sarah's eyes darted to Lily, who fiddled with a crayon on the table, drawing swirling roads and shining bikes. "He never said names, but yeah, fires, missing shipments. They lean on families when payments slip. Last week one showed up at our door, eyes cold as steel." Lily hid under the bed. Her voice cracked, the weight of unspoken fears pressing down. Hawk felt it echo his own history, Tommy's entanglement with smugglers, promises of protection turning to chains that dragged him away forever. He'd vowed then to cut those ties, but here they were, circling back through a child's plea. Before Sarah could say more, a knock sounded, sharp, official. The door opened to reveal Detective Vasquez, her suit crisp despite the early hour, a folder tucked under her arm. "Ms. Harlan, Mr. Riley, mind if I join? Got updates from Holding?" She nodded to the group, her presence a bridge between worlds. Law's rigidity softened by a shared disdain for the corrupt undercurrents. As Lily sketched quietly, Vasquez spread photos on the table. Faded images of scorched warehouses, grainy shots of tattooed figures in shadows. Ricky's crew, the Serpents, ran protection rackets disguised as storage ops. Arson wiped the evidence 5 years ago, but whispers say insiders looked the other way. He's small-time now, but desperate. Last night, he named a contact. Victor Kane, East Side boss. If Kane's involved, this isn't just custody, it's leverage. Jax shifted, his shadow stretching across the wall. Leverage on a kid? That's low, even for them. Marco nodded, wiping his hands on his jeans. "We can scout, keep eyes out, no crossing lines." Sarah reached for Lily's hand, her resolve hardening like steel cooling in a forge. "I want her safe, away from all this, but Ricky, he loves her in his broken way. If we push too hard, he'll drag us all down." Hawk met Vasquez's gaze, the room thick with the ethical tightrope they walked. Confront the shadows without becoming them. Justice through truth, not vengeance. "We'll stand with you," he said to Sarah. "Legal aid, rides to work, whatever it takes. The club's got resources, clean ones, and we'll make sure those men don't come knocking." Vasquez closed the folder, her tone firm. "I'll file for the order today. Keep Ricky sidelined, but stay vigilant. Kane's not one to forget a slight." She glanced at Hawk, a flicker of recognition. "Heard about your brother. This hits close, doesn't it?" The words landed soft but piercing, stirring the scar at Hawk's eye. Tommy's loss wasn't just a hole. It was the forge that shaped him. "Close enough to ride for it," he replied, voice steady. As the meeting wrapped, Lily held up her drawing, a convoy of bikes under a bright sun, stick figures holding hands. "For you," she said to Hawk, her smile tentative but true. He took it, folding it carefully beside the original note in his pocket. Two promises intertwined. Outside, the sun climbed higher, warming the lot as the group mounted up. Lena stayed with Sarah and Lily for the day, helping with paperwork. While the riders fanned out, Jax and Marco heading east to gauge the serpent's movements without a whisper of threat. Hawk lingered a moment, watching mother and daughter through the window, their heads bent together in quiet talk. The shelter's flag snapped in the breeze, a symbol of fragile sanctuary, but as he fired the engine, a distant rumble caught his ear. Not thunder, but tires on gravel from the access road. A low-slung car idled at the tree line, windows tinted black, engine idling like a predator's breath. No approach, just observation. Hawk's hand tightened on the throttle, signaling the others. The past wasn't done whispering, it was revving up for a chase. The convoy rolled out, dust rising in their wake toward a midday meet at the old mill. Tension coiled like a spring, dilemmas of conscience sharpening with every mile. Would they expose the corruption without igniting it, honor the family's fragile peace, or ride into the fray for full redemption? Hawk led on, the road blurring beneath him, the weight of chosen kin propelling them forward. Lily's light deserved guarding, no matter the shadows that pursued. If this story is touching your heart, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. The midday sun beat down on the old mill like a relentless interrogator, turning the rusted silos into shimmering mirages against the baked earth. Hawk pulled his Harley into the shadowed yard, the engine's growl echoing off the crumbling brick walls before he cut it silent. Dust swirled in lazy eddies, carrying the sharp scent of oxidized metal and wild mustard from the overgrown fields. The convoy followed suit, bikes lining up in a disciplined arc, Jax's massive frame dismounting first, Marco scanning the perimeter with a mechanic's eye for vulnerabilities. Lena had stayed back at the shelter with Sarah and Lily, her texts confirming all was quiet for now. But the low-slung car's watchful presence that morning lingered like exhaust in Hawk's lungs. They gathered under the mill's sagging overhang, a relic from Willow Creek's fading industrial days, where beams creaked like old bones in the breeze. Jax cracked open a cooler from Marco's van, passing around water bottles chilled against the heat, the condensation beading like sweat on tanned leather. "That car at the shelter, Serpent's style?" Jax asked, his voice a low rumble as he wiped his brow with a forearm scarred from desert ops. Hawk nodded, leaning against a weathered post, the wood rough under his palm. "Watched us leave, didn't follow. Testing waters." His mind replayed the tinted windows, the idle purr, a predator sizing up prey. Tommy's face flickered in his thoughts. That last photo from a dusty bar, grinning with naive fire before the serpent's shadows swallowed him. Promises to pull his brother out had come too late. Now they fueled this ride, turning personal ghosts into shields for Lily. Marco spread a map on the hood of the van, fingers tracing faded roads east toward the warehouse district. Kane's turf. If Ricky's feeding them intel on the family, they'll push for leverage. We scout light, no plates, no noise. His eyes, sharp behind grease-streaked glasses, met Hawk's. The mechanic had lost his own kin to a similar web years back, a cousin tangled in border runs, body vanished like smoke. Loyalty bound them tighter than blood, a chosen family that mended what war and loss had torn. Before Hawk could respond, his phone buzzed, a call from Vasquez. He stepped away, the signal crackling faintly under the mill's interference. Riley, update. Ricky's talking in holding. Blames the club for interfering, but he's scared. Mentioned Kane twice. Says the boss wants the girl as collateral for an old debt. Sarah's clean, but they've been watching the house. Hawk's grip tightened, knuckles whitening. Collateral? She's 10. The words tasted like ash, stirring the ethical storm inside. Ride hard into the fray, or hold the line with law on their side. Justice wasn't a blunt instrument, it was a careful throttle, balancing honor against the abyss. "Stay back," Vasquez warned, her voice edged with the weariness of too many compromised cases. "I've got warrants brewing for Kane's spots, but small-town brass is dragging feet. Old favors, you know how it is." Hawk did. Corruption seeped like oil from cracked engines, greasing palms while innocence spun out. He hung up, rejoining the group, the weight of her words settling like dust on their shoulders. "Ricky's cracking. Kane's using Lily as a pawn. We need to move before they do." The plan formed in clipped exchanges. Jax and 2 riders east for recon, Marco rigging trackers on spare bikes for silent pursuit, Hawk heading back to the shelter with a skeleton crew. No guns, no threats, just eyes and presence, the quiet power of unbroken oaths. As they mounted up, the sun dipped toward the jagged hills, casting the mill in elongated shadows that danced like warnings. Engines roared to life in staggered bursts, the convoy splitting like tributaries from a river. Hawk leading his trio west, the road unspooling under tires that hummed with purpose. The wind whipped through his vest, carrying the faint, acrid bite of distant wildfires, a reminder of the blazes that had scarred more than land. Back at the shelter by late afternoon, the lot was deceptively calm. Volunteers tending flower beds under the golden light. Hawk parked and strode inside, Jax's bike idling out front as a visible deterrent. Sarah met him in the lobby, Lily at her side coloring with renewed focus, the earlier fear softened by the day's routines. "Any word?" Sarah asked, her voice a thread of hope laced with dread. Hawk shook his head, keeping it measured. "Working angles. Vasquez is on it legally. We're your backup, rides, watches, whatever keeps the shadows out." Lily looked up, her crayon pausing mid-stroke. A drawing of a fierce biker shielding a small house from storm clouds. "Will Dad be okay?" she whispered, the question hanging fragile in the air. Sarah knelt, brushing hair from her daughter's face. "He's trying, sweetie, but sometimes grown-ups need help to find their way." The words echoed Hawk's own regrets, the nights he'd ridden alone after Tommy, chasing redemption in empty miles. He'd failed his blood family once. This chosen one, club, mother, child, demanded he get it right. Lena emerged from a side room, nodding to Hawk. Paperwork's advancing. Temporary custody for Sarah, restraining order filed. But Ricky's lawyer's pushing back. Claims the bikers are a threat to stability. Her laugh was dry, cutting through the tension. As if. Outside, as the group debriefed by the bikes, Marco's radio crackled, Jax's voice filtering through static. "Eyes on a meet east side. Kane's lieutenant, 3 cars, talking Harlan debt. No moves yet, but they're riled." The transmission cut, leaving a void filled by the shelter's wind chimes, tinkling softly. Hawk's scar pulled tight as he processed it. The serpents were circling, their grasp tightening like a noose on Ricky's failures. Ethical lines blurred. Expose them through Vasquez's channels, or risk a direct stand that could shatter the fragile peace. Loyalty to Lily meant sacrificing the clean ride, delving into the corruption he'd sworn off. Dusk crept in, painting the sky in bruised purples, the shelter's lights flickering on like hesitant beacons. Sarah invited them for a simple dinner. Casseroles from volunteers shared around a picnic table in the yard. Laughter bubbled tentatively, Lily recounting school stories minus the pain. Jax regaling with a toned-down tale of a cross-country run that saved a stranded family. It was a moment of normalcy, a pause in the storm, where promises felt tangible, forks clinking, stars emerging overhead. But as plates cleared, headlights swept the lot again, not the low-slung watcher, but a squad car, Vasquez at the wheel. She stepped out, face grim under the sodium glow. Ricky bailed, posted bond through a shady contact. heading east, maybe to Kane. And word's out, they're gunning for the shelter tonight. Protective detail incoming, but I need you to hold till then. The air thickened, resolve hardening like cooling metal. Hawk signaled the club, positions taken, bikes ready. "We stand," he said simply, the words a vow etched in the night. Lily hugged her mother tighter, but her eyes met Hawk's with a spark of the strength she'd found in that roadside note. Engines idled low, a symphony of vigilance as shadows lengthened. The road to redemption twisted sharper now, demanding sacrifices that tested the soul. Hawk watched the horizon, the weight of family chosen pressing forward, one guarded heartbeat at a time. The confrontation loomed, not with fury, but with the unyielding honor of those who kept their word against the dark. The night air hung thick over the shelter, charged with the electric hum of impending storm, distant thunder rumbling like a warning from the hills. Hawk stood sentinel by the front gate, his silhouette etched against the floodlights that bathed the lot in stark yellow pools. The scent of rain-soaked earth mingled with the oily tang of idling engines, the Iron Vow's bikes forming a ragged phalanx across the entrance. 36 strong now, riders summoned from the shadows of the county, their leathers creaking softly in the breeze. Jax loomed nearby, arms crossed over his broad chest, while Marco adjusted a makeshift barrier of sawhorses, his tools glinting like badges of quiet defiance. Inside, Sarah held Lily close on a threadbare couch, Lena's steady presence a balm against the girl's wide-eyed fears. Hawk's scar itched under the humidity, a phantom pull from old wounds that mirrored the tension coiling in his gut. This was the crux, the moment where promises either held or shattered like brittle chrome. Ricky's bail had unleashed the hounds. Vasquez's protective detail was en route, but the clock ticked mercilessly, each minute stretching like a slow pull on the throttle. The serpents wouldn't wait for badges, they'd come for leverage, for the debt etched in blood and fire that had claimed Tommy years ago. Hawk wouldn't let history repeat, not for this child whose note had bridged his fractured past to a fragile future. Headlights pierced the darkness first, low and predatory, slicing through the tree line like knives. 2 sedans, black as midnight oil, rolled to a halt at the lot's edge, engines cutting to a predatory purr. Doors opened and figures emerged, 4 men, wiry and marked with faded serpent tattoos curling up their necks, shadows of Victor Kane's reach. The leader, a gaunt man with a shaved head and eyes like chipped flint, stepped forward, hands visible, but fists clenched. "Harlan's girl," he called, voice slicing the night. "Boss wants a word. Family business." Hawk didn't move, his boots rooted to the gravel, the club's engines revving in low harmony, a wall of sound that vibrated through the ground. "No business here," he replied, tone even as a horizon line. "Girls under protection, walk away." The leader sneered, glancing at his crew, who fanned out with calculated menace, one hand dipping toward a waistband. Whispers of weapons hung unspoken, the air thickening with the metallic bite of fear. Jax shifted, a mountain ready to avalanche, but Hawk signaled restraint, a raised palm. The unspoken creed of the vows, justice through presence, not fists. Inside, Lily pressed her face to the window, Sarah's arms a shield, their silhouettes a beacon, Hawk guarded with every scarred mile of his life. "You bikers think you're knights?" The leader spat, advancing a step, his shadow stretching long under the lights. "Kane owns this town. Harlan owes, and the kid settles it. Hand her over, or we make noise." The words ignited memories. Tommy's last call, voice slurred with desperation, begging Hawk to ride in and pull him from the same web. He'd hesitated then, war's ghosts chaining him, and paid with a brother's silence. No more. Hawk stepped forward, closing the gap, his voice a gravel whisper that carried like thunder. "Oh, sounds like excuses for preying on the weak. We've seen your kind, fires that burn evidence, debts that chain families, but this ends tonight. Clean." The man's eyes narrowed, calculating the odds. The bike's unyielding line, The distant wail of sirens growing louder, Vasquez's backup closing in. His crew hesitated, the bravado cracking like dry earth. Marco's radio crackled softly. Jack's murmuring updates. The club's network a web of eyes across the roads. No shots fired, no charges drawn, just the weight of honor pressing down, exposing the fragility of their threats. From the shadows, another figure approached. Ricky Harlan, stumbling from a side path, face gaunt and hollowed by regret, the bottle's haze burned away by fear. "Wait!" he rasped, hands up, new voice breaking the standoff. "It's me you want. The debt's mine. Old runs for Kane, shipments that went south. Leave them out." He glanced at the shelter, eyes locking on the window where Lily watched, her small hand waving tentatively. "I failed her. Let me fix it." The leader turned, surprise flickering. "Harlan, you're supposed to be holed up." But Ricky pressed on, words tumbling like gravel under tires. "Tell Kane I'll turn state's evidence. Vasquez has the files, warehouse logs, names. No more leverage. Just let my family breathe." Hawk watched, the scene unfolding like a slow reveal in the headlights' glare. Redemption wasn't a blaze. It was this, a broken man stepping into the light, oaths rewritten in the face of loss. The Serpent's leader paused. The sirens now a howl, blue lights flashing at the horizon. With a curse, he signaled retreat, the sedans peeling away in a spray of dust, tails between legs as squad cars flooded the lot. Vasquez arrived first, badge gleaming, cuffing Ricky without fanfare. Cooperative witness, not enemy. "Smart play," she said to Hawk, nodding to the shelter. "You held the line. Kane's house of cards starts falling tomorrow." As the chaos ebbed, dawn's first blush painted the sky in soft pinks, washing away the night's grime. Hawk approached the door, Sarah opening it with Lily in tow. The girl's eyes shone, no longer shadowed, as she hugged him fiercely. "You kept everyone safe," she whispered, slipping a new drawing into his vest, a family of riders under a clear sky. Sarah clasped his hand, tears tracing lines of gratitude. "Thank you for seeing what we couldn't." Ricky, loaded into a car for protection, met Hawk's gaze through the window. A nod of shared burdens, promises forged in the fire of second chances. The club mounted up as the sun crested, engines harmonizing in a farewell roar that echoed like victory. Hawk led the ride out, the road stretching open and true, dust devils dancing in their wake. Tommy's ghost felt lighter now, redeemed not in vengeance but in the quiet honor of standing for the lost. Lily's note had bound them all, a chosen family rolling forward, oaths unbroken, into a world where justice whispered louder than thunder. The shelter faded behind, but the legacy lingered, promises that survived the dark. Loyalty's engine carrying them home. Thank you for riding this journey with us. If these tales of honor and redemption touch your soul, subscribe for more stories that light the road ahead.